Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. Your daughter's life isn't worth more than our policy. The words sliced through the hospital lobby like a scalpel, leaving Mark Collins bleeding inside. His legs nearly buckled as he gripped the admin desk, the fluorescent light suddenly too bright, too harsh. $20,000 might as well have been $20 million. Impossible either way for a single father whose insurance claim had been denied hours earlier. Behind him, monitors beeped rhythmically from Emma's room, each sound a countdown timer to a surgery she needed within hours. The night staff moved about with practiced detachment, their eyes avoiding the scene unfolding at the desk. Outside, rain pounded against the windows of St. Mary's Children's Hospital, matching the storm inside Mark's chest as he pleaded again with the administrator whose nameplate read, Richard Keller, Financial Services. "Please," Mark whispered, his voice breaking. "She's only 8. The administrator's expression remained unchanged, the computer screen reflecting blue in his glasses as he repeated hospital policy. In the adjacent waiting area, other parents pretended not to hear, their own fears magnified by the scene. None noticed the tall figure who'd entered from the parking garage elevator, baseball cap pulled low, who now stood silently observing the desperate father being told his child's life had a price he couldn't afford. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. Mark Collins had been at the hospital for 36 straight hours, the coffee stains on his wrinkled shirt mapping the timeline of his daughter's deteriorating condition. 3 days ago, Emma had been playing soccer in their backyard, her laughter echoing through their small apartment complex. Now she lay sedated, her appendix ruptured, infection spreading. The doctors had been clear. Without immediate surgery, sepsis would set in by morning. "Mr. Keller, I can sell my car right now. I can sign whatever payment plan you need." Mark's voice trembled as he pulled out his phone. "I just need a few days to arrange the rest." The administrator sighed, the kind of sigh that suggested this was routine, just another Tuesday night of desperate parents and hospital economics. "Our surgical team requires payment confirmation before proceeding with non-emergency procedures." His fingers tapped mechanically on the keyboard. "Non-emergency?" Mark's voice rose, drawing glances from the night nurse at the station. "My daughter is dying in that room." The cap-wearing figure in the corner lowered his phone, his attention fully captured now by the escalating scene. He tilted his head slightly, listening. "Mr. Collins," the administrator's voice remained carefully controlled, "according to our records, you've already been denied by your insurance provider. The hospital has categorized this as urgent but not immediately life-threatening. I'm simply following protocol." A young resident doctor passing through the lobby slowed his pace, his eyes darting between Mark and the administrator. His hospital badge read, Dr. Patel, and he clutched a tablet showing Emma's charts. "That's not what Dr. Sampson told me an hour ago," Mark countered, desperation making his words sharper. "She said every hour increases the risk of septic shock." The few families remaining in the waiting area had abandoned any pretense of not listening. An elderly woman clutched her husband's hand tighter. A mother holding a sleeping toddler whispered something into her partner's ear. The night security guard shifted uncomfortably, his hand resting on his radio. "I understand your frustration," Keller continued, his voice dropping to minimize the audience. "But there are financial assistance programs you can apply for tomorrow morning when the office opens. Until then, we'll continue monitoring your daughter's condition." The man in the baseball cap stepped forward, moving with deliberate calm toward the coffee machine beside the desk. His expensive athletic shoes made no sound on the polished floor. Mark's composure finally shattered. Tomorrow morning. My daughter might not have until tomorrow morning. His voice broke, tears streaming down his face. The security guard took a half step forward, anticipating trouble. "Sir, I need you to lower your voice," Keller warned, his finger hovering near what was presumably a panic button beneath the desk. Dr. Patel hesitated by the elevator, visibly torn between protocol and the unfolding human tragedy. He glanced at his watch, then at Emma's room, his professional detachment wavering. The stranger at the coffee machine inserted a bill, but his attention wasn't on the brewing cup. Through the reflection in the vending machine's glass, his eyes, intelligent and calculating, observed everything. The machine hummed as it dispensed coffee, masking the sound of his phone as he quickly typed something. "Please," Mark begged, no longer caring who witnessed his desperation. "She's all I have. Her mother died when she was 3. She's my whole world." Keller's expression softened fractionally, genuine sympathy breaking through his professional facade. "I truly am sorry, Mr. Collins. My hands are tied by hospital policy." As Mark slumped against the counter, defeated, the stranger in the cap abandoned his coffee and turned. The overhead lights caught his face as he straightened to his full height, revealing features instantly recognizable to everyone in the lobby. The room fell silent. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. Elon Musk removed his cap, running a hand through his dark hair as he approached the desk. Recognition rippled through the room like an electric current. The security guard straightened his posture. The administrator's eyes widened, his professional demeanor momentarily fracturing. "What seems to be the problem here?" Musk asked, his voice carrying the distinct accent that millions had heard in interviews and presentations. He stood beside Mark, not across from him, a subtle positioning that spoke volumes. Keller cleared his throat, caught between hospital protocol and the sudden appearance of one of the world's richest men. "I'm afraid this is a private matter regarding patient finances, sir." "I gathered that much," Musk replied, his tone matter-of-fact. He turned to Mark, who stared in bewilderment. "Your daughter needs surgery, and they won't proceed without payment?" Mark nodded, too stunned to speak coherently. "My Emma, appendix ruptured, insurance denied, $20,000. Dr. Patel stepped forward, professionalism overriding caution. "The patient requires immediate intervention. The infection is spreading. Another 6 hours and we risk septic shock." He ignored Keller's warning glance. Musk nodded thoughtfully, then turned to the administrator. "So the issue is purely financial? There are surgeons ready to operate?" "Well, yes, but—" Keller began. "What's your name?" Musk interrupted, his gaze direct and unwavering. "Richard Keller, Financial Services Manager." The pride in his tone couldn't mask his growing discomfort as whispers spread through the waiting area. Several people had their phones out now, recording discreetly. "Mr. Keller," Musk said, leaning slightly forward, "explain something to me. What's the actual cost to the hospital for this procedure?" Keller shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not at liberty to discuss our internal cost structures, Mr. Musk." "Of course you aren't," Musk replied, a hint of irony in his voice. "But we both know the billed amount bears little resemblance to actual costs. It's an interesting system you have in American healthcare." Whispers intensified throughout the lobby. A night nurse paused in her rounds, clipboard clutched to her chest. Even the janitor who had been mopping the far corner had stopped to watch. "Sir, I understand your concern," Keller said, straightening his tie. But hospital policy is very clear about financial policy, Musk interrupted, the word sharp and precise. Interesting word. Created by humans, implemented by humans, and changeable by humans. He turned back to Mark. Tell me about your daughter. Mark's eyes welled with fresh tears, but he stood straighter. Emma. She's 8. Loves science and space. Actually, he laughed sadly. She wants to go to Mars someday. Has a poster of one of your rockets on her wall. Something shifted in Musk's expression, a momentary softness crossing his features. He nodded once, decision made, and pulled out his phone. I'm making a donation to this hospital, he announced, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. $25,000, specifically earmarked for Emma Collins' procedure and recovery. He looked up at Keller. Will that satisfy your policy requirements? The administrator stared, mouth slightly open. That's very generous, but there are procedures for accepting donations. Forms to be filled. The finance office would need to... Let me be clear, Musk cut in, his voice remaining calm, but taking on the edge that had faced down countless boardrooms. I'm not asking if your paperwork can be completed tonight. I'm asking if a guaranteed payment of $25,000 meets your requirement to begin this child's surgery. The fluorescent lights hummed in the silence that followed. Dr. Patel stepped forward, tablet clutched tightly. Mr. Keller, as the attending physician, I can confirm that with payment secured, we have every medical reason to proceed immediately. Keller's eyes darted between the doctor, Musk, and the growing audience. His authority was evaporating by the second. I'll need to call the night administrator. Call whoever you need to, Musk replied. I'll wait. He turned to Mark and spoke more quietly. Your daughter will get her surgery tonight. Mark struggled to find words, his hands trembling. I don't know how to thank you. I can't possibly repay. You don't need to, Musk cut in simply. Sometimes the system fails people it shouldn't. Keller returned from his hurried phone call, his expression a mixture of resignation and relief. The night administrator has approved moving forward based on Mr. Musk's contribution. He couldn't quite bring himself to look at either man directly. Dr. Patel, you may notify the surgical team they can begin preparations. The young doctor nodded and hurried toward the nurse's station, already calling out instructions. A flurry of activity erupted as staff members who had been watching from a distance suddenly found purpose, moving quickly toward Emma's room. A woman in the waiting area stood up and began to applaud. Within seconds, others joined in, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. The sound filled the lobby, echoing off the sterile walls, transforming the institutional space. Musk appeared momentarily uncomfortable with the attention, shifting his weight and half raising his hand in an awkward acknowledgement. This wasn't a product launch or a shareholder meeting. This was something entirely different. A security guard approached, leaning in to speak quietly. Sir, there are people gathering outside. Someone posted on social media. The press might not be far behind. Mark watched as the surgical team entered his daughter's room, their efficiency and purpose a stark contrast to the administrative paralysis of moments before. When he turned back to thank Musk again, the billionaire was already being escorted toward a private exit, cap once again pulled low over his face. This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below and let's talk. The story exploded across social media overnight. By dawn, Elon Saves Emma was trending nationally. Cell phone footage from the hospital lobby, though grainy and partial, had been viewed millions of times. News vans lined the street outside St. Mary's Children's Hospital, reporters doing live stand-ups with the building's facade as backdrop. Inside, Mark sat beside Emma's bed in the recovery room, her color already better than it had been for days. The surgery had gone perfectly. Dr. Sampson had removed the ruptured appendix and cleaned the infection before it could spread further. Just in time, she told Mark with a pointed look that acknowledged what had nearly happened. A soft knock at the door made Mark look up. Richard Keller stood awkwardly in the doorway, his tie perfectly straight but his expression conflicted. "Mr. Collins, I wanted to check on Emma personally," he said, taking a small step into the room, "and to express that the hospital is pleased that we were able to find a solution." His carefully chosen words couldn't mask the corporate damage control underway. Mark simply nodded, too exhausted for anger. "The hospital board has been in emergency meetings since 6 a.m., Keller continued, lowering his voice. "They've asked me to inform you that all remaining expenses associated with Emma's care will be covered by the hospital foundation." Outside in the hallway, staff members moved with heightened energy, aware of their institution's sudden spotlight. Nurses who passed Emma's room glanced in with smiles that seemed more genuine than professional. "There are reporters asking for interviews," Keller added. "The hospital has prepared a statement, but they're specifically requesting to speak with you. There's significant public interest in your story." Mark looked at his daughter's peaceful, sleeping face, her chest rising and falling steadily. "I'm not leaving her side," he said simply. "Of course," Keller nodded quickly, "completely understandable." He lingered a moment longer than necessary, then added, "The board has also asked me to convey that they're implementing an immediate review of our emergency financial policies." As Keller left, a text message notification lit up Mark's phone. Unknown number. "How is Emma doing this morning?" EM. Mark stared at the screen, then typed back with trembling fingers. "The doctors say she's going to be fine. They said if we'd waited until morning, I don't know how to thank you." 3 dots appeared, then, "No thanks needed. Could you do me a favor, though? Emma mentioned Mars. When she's better, tell her we're saving a seat on the first civilian mission. Not joking." Mark read the message twice, a smile breaking through his exhaustion. Before he could respond, the door opened again. This time it was Dr. Sampson, Emma's primary surgeon. "She's recovering beautifully," the doctor said, checking the monitors. "You have a strong daughter, Mr. Collins." "I know," Mark whispered. Dr. Sampson hesitated, then sat in the chair opposite Mark. "I want you to know something. What happened last night?" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "It's not an isolated incident. Insurance denials, families facing impossible choices. We see it weekly." "But not with billionaires stepping in," Mark said. "No," she acknowledged. "Not like that. But this morning, something's different. The board members who've been resisting our emergency care policy changes for years are suddenly very motivated to revisit the discussion." She glanced at her own phone, where notifications continued to appear. "The hospital's name is everywhere." Emma stirred slightly, her eyelids fluttering. Both adults turned their attention immediately to her. "Daddy," she murmured, her voice small but clear. "I'm right here, sweetheart," Mark said, taking her hand gently between his. "Everything's okay." Emma's eyes opened fully, taking in her surroundings with the disoriented gaze of someone waking from anesthesia. "Did I have my operation?" "You did," Dr. Sampson answered, moving to check her pupils with a small light. "And you did great." Mark stroked his daughter's hair, his emotions threatening to overwhelm him again. "Emma, something amazing happened last night. Do you remember your Mars poster? The SpaceX one? She nodded weakly. Well, Mark continued, his voice catching, Elon Musk was here. He helped make sure you got your surgery right away. Emma's eyes widened despite her grogginess. The real Elon Musk? Here. Dr. Sampson nodded, unable to suppress a smile. The very same. He caused quite a stir. And, Mark added, showing Emma the text message, he sent this for you. The 8-year-old's face transformed as she read the words, pain momentarily forgotten. Dad! Mars! He said Mars! From outside, the sounds of the hospital continued. Footsteps, voices, monitors beeping, but in Emma's room, time seemed suspended in a perfect moment of joy amidst recovery. That moment was captured by Dr. Patel, who had stopped by to check on his patient. With permission, he took a photo of Emma's beaming face as she held up her father's phone with the message visible. For her medical chart, he said with a wink. Within an hour, that image, carefully edited to protect patient privacy but showing Emma's radiant smile and Musk's visible message, appeared on the hospital's social media accounts. The caption read simply, "Dreams of Mars, alive and well at St. Mary's. Thank you, at Elon Musk, for reminding us that policies should serve people, not the other way around. Humanity first." The post spread faster than the original lobby video, eventually reaching Musk himself, who shared it with his millions of followers alongside a brief comment. Looking forward to meeting you properly, Emma. Mars needs bold explorers like you. Recovery first, then stars. As news cycles churned and commentators debated healthcare economics, celebrity influence, and social media's power, Emma slept peacefully, her surgery successful, her future secure, her dreams more vivid than ever. It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Three days later, Emma was discharged from St. Mary's Children's Hospital. Mark wheeled her through corridors that had become unexpectedly familiar, past staff members who smiled and waved as if seeing off a celebrity. In many ways, she was. The hospital's main entrance had been transformed. What had been an unremarkable space now bustled with activity and purpose. A large banner hung above the reception desk, announcing the Emma Collins Emergency Care Initiative. No child turned away. Dr. Sampson walked alongside them, explaining what had happened in the wake of that night. The board voted unanimously yesterday. No child will be denied urgent care while insurance or payment details are being processed. She handed Mark a press release with the official announcement. All because of Emma? Mark asked, still processing the magnitude of the change. And you, the doctor corrected. And yes, Mr. Musk's intervention. Sometimes systems need a shock to change course. As they approached the main doors, Dr. Sampson added more quietly, "There's a bit of a gathering outside." The hospital's been fielding donations and messages of support from across the country. People want to see Emma. You don't have to stop or speak with anyone if you don't want to. Mark looked down at his daughter, who had traded her hospital gown for a new t-shirt someone had sent. Navy blue with the SpaceX logo and Future Martian printed beneath it. What do you think, Em? Feel up to saying hello to some people? Emma, still pale but with bright eyes, nodded. Can I say thank you to everyone? Outside the hospital entrance, a small crowd had gathered. Hospital staff, local families, a few reporters with cameras. They broke into applause when Emma appeared in her wheelchair. Mark blinked back tears at the unexpected reception. A hospital administrator stepped forward with a microphone, making a brief statement about the new emergency care initiative. As he spoke, Mark noticed Richard Keller standing at the edge of the gathering, his expression a complex mixture of emotions. When their eyes met, Keller offered a small, solemn nod that conveyed more than words could have. When invited to speak, Mark kept his comments brief. "Thank you all for your support. Emma's going to be fine, thanks to the amazing doctors and nurses here." He paused, gathering himself. "And thanks to someone who reminded us all that when systems fail, sometimes humans have to step in." Emma, with all the resilience of childhood, waved to the cameras from her wheelchair. "I'm going to Mars," she announced proudly, drawing laughter and more applause. As they made their way toward Mark's car, a hospital volunteer handed him a thick folder. "These are some of the letters and cards people have sent for Emma," she explained. "There are thousands more emails. People from all over the world." Mark accepted the folder, overwhelmed. Inside their car, away from the cameras and attention, he finally allowed himself a moment of private emotion. "We made it, Em," he whispered, starting the engine. Emma, buckled safely in the back seat, clutched her new SpaceX shirt. "Dad? Do you think he really meant it? About Mars?" Mark smiled at his daughter in the rearview mirror. "I think Elon Musk is a man who means what he says." 6 months later, Emma stood on a viewing platform at SpaceX headquarters, her health fully restored, her eyes wide with wonder. Beside her, Mark watched his daughter rather than the gleaming rocket being prepared for display. She wore her future Martian shirt, now faded from multiple washes. She had barely allowed him to remove it for laundry. They were among dozens of families invited for a special tour, all children who had faced serious medical challenges, all beneficiaries of the wave of healthcare policy changes that had swept through hospitals nationwide following Emma's story. "And here he comes," whispered the tour guide with barely contained excitement. Elon Musk approached the group with his characteristic walk, purposeful and slightly awkward simultaneously. He greeted the children as a group, then paused at Emma, recognition immediate. "Mars girl," he said with a genuine smile. "Feeling better?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Much better. Dad says I can start soccer again next month." "Good," Musk replied. "You'll need strong legs for Mars. Lower gravity, but the spacesuits are heavy." He spoke to her not as an adult humoring a child, but as one explorer to another. Emma beamed under his serious attention. Later, as families toured the facility, Musk spoke briefly with Mark. "Your daughter's story changed things," he said without preamble. "Your intervention did," Mark countered. Musk shook his head. "Number. The world is full of broken systems that people accept because they seem immovable. Sometimes all it takes is one person saying, 'This is wrong,' at exactly the right moment." He watched Emma, now deep in conversation with a SpaceX engineer. "She's the catalyst. I just happened to be there." As they parted ways, Musk added, "Keep her looking up at Mars. We need dreamers who understand the value of every human life, especially on a new world." Mark watched his daughter pointing excitedly at rocket components, her future once again limitless, her dreams reaching beyond even the hospital ceiling that had confined her 6 months earlier. Sometimes, he reflected, the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the power to change a single human life, or an entire system that had forgotten its purpose. Wow, what a story! If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think.